Welcome to our session, Design It Like Netflix, Information Design in Power BI. My name is Evelyn and I'm representing the business intelligence consultancy Reise located in Germany. My focus lies on information design in Power BI. In today's session, I want you to rethink your report design in Power BI. Our journey will start on a short introduction of digital design. Here you will understand how digitalization affects design. In the next section, I will show you where digital design encounters our daily lives. What we've learned so far will be adapted into a Power BI report. And I hope that this short demo will boost your creativity for your further reports and dashboards. In the end, I will give you 5 important tips and tricks how you can start with information design today. So let's start. The effects of digitalization are immense. Digitalization shapes our personal, professional lives and the economy and society we live in. It has an impact how we communicate to each other, how we feel and how we consume information. It makes our lives easier and faster. But with this change, designers nowadays are facing one big problem. People just don't have time anymore. That's why we need smart ways of designing information to overcome this issue. On this slide, I want to illustrate why we need smart information design. This year is a timeline. 45,000 years ago, the human race was designing information in form of simple illustrations. And we did this for a very, very long time. 5,000 years later, the Egyptians started to implement visual elements in their written language. 7,000 years later, we face the next huge step of information design, the book printing of the 16th century. Information was now available to a wider audience, and with the books, it was able to store a lot of information in one medium. 600 years later, 1979, we face another big step in the information design. The first email was written. Here we start writing information on a digital surface. In 1985, Excel was launched, and this was also a huge step for the visualization of numerical data. In the beginning of the 1990s, the first website was launched, and as you can see, the website is very basic and no rocket science. But this was the first time people started using dynamic links to get further into the website's content. In 2004, Mark Zuckerberg launched Facebook, and people were confronted with totally new content and started to interact with it on a daily basis. In 2007, Apple launched their first smartphone, and people needed to get used to these apps and small icons and actually touching the information with their bare hands. In 2010, Instagram polarized with their visual content. In 2018, TikTok floods the internet with videos in a snackable format. As you can see, since the year 2000, it gets very crowded on the timeline. And I'm pretty sure that there are a lot of more milestones of information design I forgot to mention. The last years show that we are facing immense changes of information design in a very short period of time. While in the past, humanity had thousands and thousands of years to adapt to these changes, we have only few years or even months until digital platforms release new updates and new content. The design resources have also changed over time. In the past, all we needed is a good creative idea, a piece of paper, and talent to design information. Nowadays, with data, it is possible to analyze user experience. The awareness of the user is also one valuable resource. As I mentioned before, everything moves faster and we prioritize what we want where we want to invest our awareness to. Information designers nowadays have to work with an attention span of 5 to 8 seconds. Last but not least, designers have to be thoughtful of their designs. Design needs to be strategic to have an impact on us humans. Digitalization also reshapes the process of information design. In the past, designers created their products on own ideas. Then, consumers and stakeholders interacted with this visual form. After that, the designers were dependent again from the communicated feedback of the consumers and stakeholders. And on this feedback, they adapted their products. Today, this feedback is often gathered through data. This data is then again analyzed by data analysts. And these data analysts and designers have to work together. And after this collaboration, designers adapt their designs on the insights of the data analysts. As you can see, it gets much more complicated because of digitalization. So far, you've learned how information design changed through digitalization and why we need smart digital designs. Now, I want to show you 2 very common design examples you meet in your daily lives. What do you feel when you see this icon? Are you happy, stressed, or even annoyed? We all are familiar with this icon on social media. This very small element immediately creates an effect. It influences our feelings and how we behave on social media. It can lead to happiness and it can lead to frustration. And this just because of design. I wanted to show you another example how design of social media influences our behavior. This here is a slot machine, and it is designed to trigger dopamine release in your bodies. It makes us feel good and wanting to come back for more. So what happens here? You pull the lever and you win a prize. This is a very regular action and is linked to a variable reward. This means you might win or you might not. This also happens on digital social platforms. We pull and we refresh in the hope that something more entertaining has happened in the nanosecond we last updated it. These text bubbles, they work in the same way. We see the dots and we wait for the text message from our friends and loved ones. The design influences us so much that we stay on the slot machine, on the social platform, and in the text messenger a little bit longer because we're hoping for the next dopamine release. The impact of design on humans is unmissable. In the last 2 years, this circumstance generated a lot of attention. Books on this topic have been published, and there have been many studies on the correlation of screen time and depression. Also, designers feel responsible and call out for sustainable design, for example, in these 2 TED Talks. The digital age also leads to new online platforms which display a lot of information. And these platforms need very smart information design to support the users navigating through their platform. I will now dig deeper into the science of the streaming platforms like Netflix. First thing you see when you go into the platform is this. And Netflix offers you the possibility to create a personalized profile. At the beginning of every session, you are always picked up by this landing page. You click on your own profile and you know what to expect on the following site. You kind of feel a comfort when you go into this platform. After you navigate through your personalized profile, you reach a landing page. And this page starts with a big eye catcher in the background. The picture is based on a selected series and it immediately grabs your attention. Another important aspect of streaming platforms are the big tiles. And to help you navigate through this complex system, the platform uses these big tiles instead of small, complex lists to attract your attention. Netflix also uses machine learning to adapt the thumbnails on the tiles. And this machine learning algorithm uses data from your viewing habits. For example, you watch a lot of romantic comedies, then you might see more couples on the thumbnails. With this personalization, Netflix can also prevent your overall page from becoming too boring because you see the same content day by day by day. The platform also uses pre-selected categories like new on Netflix or thriller or comedy. And when you navigate through the system and through the site, you don't filter the information. This content is pre-filtered by these categories for you. Have you noticed that all the streaming platforms are on dark mode? Looking on a bright background can lead to dry and painful eyes. When we are exposed to white light, our bodies doesn't produce melatonin, the sleeping hormone. The dark mode on streaming platform fits very well, of course, because their aim is to get us into a relaxation mode. Have you ever used the navigation option on Netflix? To be honest, most of the time you will not travel through the platform by the navigation, but organically through the site. So what happens here? Netflix moves the navigation to the background, and the focus definitely lies on the information. The preview makes it possible to save time on the platform. The feature is simply activated by clicking on a movie tile. This aspect is very user-friendly because you don't have to jump on the next page to just get a quick overview of the selected information. With the top 10 list, the system also gives the user some guidance. The big numbers immediately tell you what you should focus on first or what you should watch first. All these features we just saw can be seen all over the internet, for example also on YouTube. And they basically follow these three simple rules. First, we give an overview, as we have seen with the big tiles. Then, you give the possibility to zoom into the content. Netflix does this, for example, with the preview feature. And last but not least, the user should have an option to see details. If you want to know more about this topic, all these aspects can be summarized by the information-seeking mantra by Ben Schneiderman. And a little side note on this, the mantra was already established in 1996. So streaming platforms actually didn't reinvent the wheel here. So, we have learned from social media and streaming platforms that smart information design can have an impact on us. All these examples led me to one idea. Why not design a report, a Power BI report, like a streaming platform? In the next chapter, I want to boost your creativity and show you how I implemented the aspects you've just seen from the chapter before in a Power BI report. So lean back and enjoy the movie. Imagine I am a sales manager. I open the report and I'm picked up by this landing page. I immediately know where to go. I click on the tile. I arrive on this landing page where I can see sales KPIs for different categories. There is this minimalistic navigation, which I actually don't care about. I will use the navigation through the site. What I also don't care about is that I can't filter the site because the categories are pre-selected for me. The big tiles make it easy to detect critical values. I scan the first category and I'm guided by color. Green is good, so let's move on further in this country segment. I see a red tile and my interest was aroused. I click on the tile and see a preview. I see some red dots, but the percentage is so small, so I decide the numbers are still fine. I will go back to the tiles and scan the second category. Again, I'm guided by color. I click on the first red tile I see. The preview shows me too many red dots and I'm alarmed. So I decide to dig deeper into the analysis. I would now give you a little recap on the demo you just saw and summarize the different layers of the report. I adapted Netflix's personalized landing page on the report. In my case, I didn't use personal profiles, but created profiles based on KPIs. In this way, it is also possible to pre-filter the upcoming information and the user can mentally prepare for the next site. Of course, it could be possible to structure this differently. For example, you could structure it on a hierarchy level, CEO view, management view, or team member view, and so on. The landing page looks very familiar to the Netflix layout. The information is structured into 3 categories, and I adapted the minimalist navigation bar in which the user could hop on to one specific category. As you remember, Netflix used the top 10 list to guide the users through the content. I guide the users by color. The red color works like a call to action. Here, look at me, something is wrong. Netflix also uses the big eye catcher on the landing page. I also used some eye catcher here, the world map. This is rather nice to have. However, in my opinion, it loosens up the content, the information, and makes the content more accessible to the user. As you might notice, I didn't implement the dark mode into the report, but a light version of it. The dark mode makes sense in a streaming platform, big environment, because we want to relax with the movies. But here, in this context, I want the user is vitally awake to be able to analyze critical data. The third layer I implemented is the preview feature, which is activated by clicking on a KPI card. Here, the user gets a quick overview, quick detailed look on the situation. I also implemented the tile from before for a high recognition value, because I assume the user has a very short attention span. And in this case, the user doesn't have to jump back if he or she forgets which button he pressed to get to the preview. From here, I give the user a choice to go back to the remaining KPIs or zoom into or as Netflix would say it, press play for the analysis of the country, Australia. The fourth layer should give a very detailed look on the information. Here it is possible to work with different data visualization. I hope you enjoyed the little creativity spark, and now we move on to our last part of the presentation. I want to give you 5 tips and tricks how to implement information design into your Power BI reports. On the first tip, I want to show you what to keep in mind when you design visualization for humans. Secondly, I will show you what I actually mean by simple is the best. Thirdly, I want you to think like an information architect. The fourth tip will show you a small practical tip for your development of your Power BI reports to avoid chaos. Last but not least, I want you to don't stress out when it comes to storytelling with data. Tip number 1, design a report for humans, not users. Here are 5 aspects you should know about humans when it comes to data visualization. In the following, I will elaborate all these aspects of human behavior. First thing you have to keep in mind when designing reports and dashboards for human, we don't read data in a specific order. Depending on the cultural background, there usually exist rules on how to read written language. We acquire these rules as little children and apply them our following lives. When it comes to data visualization, there exist no rules. We don't have a specific order how we look at the data graphs. Most of the time, we only start learning reading data correctly in a business context. But we can see a little shift here since the occurrence of big data. Educational institutions, such as universities, implement data studies in their curriculum. We will now move on to our next aspect of human behavior. Second thing we have to keep in mind, humans see what is standing out. For example, this graphic. The pink color immediately attracts my attention. What else can attract my attention? Peaks, declines, dominant colors, and outliers. The third aspect of human behavior when it comes to data visualization follows now. As humans, we only see one thing at a time. On the left side, you can see a line graph, and which shows the development of ratings from January to June. We can definitely recognize a trend of increased ratings. But what if we just want to analyze the rating of Anna and Peter? It gets very difficult to recognize their lines. But after I highlight their lines and move the others to the background with a lighter gray tone, it's much more easier to process this information. Let's move on to the next aspect. The fourth aspect is that we live and consume information on educated values. I want to illustrate you this fact on a small and effective example. When we think of the world map, this is what comes in our mind. We immediately know how to interpret this and read this information. This here is just another perspective, but also correct, because there actually is no up and down in space. For us, the map on the right side only feels strange because we've been taught differently our whole lives. Keep this aspect in mind, especially when you visualize data for recipients with different backgrounds than yours. We have come to the last aspect of the human behavior. Most of us have one thing in common. We think a lot and we put everything into perspective. We see these graphs and our brain immediately starts thinking, why is this blue? Is there a difference from 2012 to 2013? Is this difference big? Should I be worried about it? Where are the values of the previous year? This fourth aspect that we always seek for meaning, it also has an is also so very important for data storytelling in the reports. Keep in mind to not just show the data, but also give the consumer of your report further information to put the data into perspective. You are now experts on human behavior. Now I wanted to show you how you can make your report design simple. One way to simplify your dashboards is to use easy-to-read visuals. The purpose of a visual should be to show information in an efficient way. This means the user should read and interpret the visuals as fast as possible. Charts which are easy to read are, for example, bar charts, line charts, charts with 2 axes, like the scatter plot, and tables. Pie charts or donut diagrams, however, are not so simple to read because the human brain has to interpret the colors, the numbers, and the circle angles. And if you remember, we learned on the first tip that humans only see one thing at a time. You might also think that bar and line charts are boring and common, but try using this to your advantage because everyone knows how to read them and everyone knows how to read them efficiently and quickly. This is an interesting eye tracking study which shows the negative aspects of inefficient data visualization. You will see the red dots representing our eyes movement, reading the visualization. First, the user takes a lot of time to scan the information in the title. Then the user jumps to the pie charts and scans the colors and numbers. You can see how the eyes move from one pie to another pie multiple times. Then the user has to scan the legend and compare the legend to the colors in the visual. And as I told you before, a good visual should show information in an efficient way, meaning the user reads and interprets the visuals as fast as possible, no hopping around. And this is definitely not happening here in the eye tracking study. Another aspect which helps to simplify your reports is to reduce the amount of color in your report. Use colors strategically, like I have shown you on the Netflix layout. There I used the color as an alarm signal. This short video here illustrates how you can apply different steps to simplify your visual, like moving from many colors to just one. You have learned which visuals you should use in your Power BI reports. Now, I want you to think like an information architect. An information architect brings together structure and meaning of information. As I have shown you earlier in the session, the structure and layouts of reports matter and can help people navigate through complex systems. As an example, you can build up your report like this. First, you give an overview of everything. For example, the overview landing page can include only single KPIs to a specific category. Secondly, by smart navigation, the user can be guided to a detailed layer, which gives a detailed look on the selected KPIs. In the third layer, the user digs deeper into the information if he or she wants to, depending on the business background. Some people are satisfied with the first layer and some are only interested in all the details from the third layer. And if you have paid attention to this session, you might remember where you've seen the structure before. This concept is also used by Netflix. First, there is this overview layer composed with the big tiles. Then the preview feature, which gives you details to a movie, for example. And if your interest was aroused, you move on to watch the movie. So now you know how to efficiently structure a report. And a good architect should also know how to design the interior of a report. The first layer is fitted very well for visuals, which give a quick overview of the whole situation. For example, KPI cards. You can pimp your KPI card with additional information, such as colors, trend lines. The second layer fits for more visual elements, like bar graphs or line graphs. They show less detail than a table, but more than a KPI card, and they are suitable to quickly show the relevant information. And the third layer is good for big tables. The information is very granular, and the user might take longer time to examine the data. A good information architect is also aware of the direction of a report. The ideal direction is in a Z form. The top left corner, you should keep the most important information. And then you move on with the second important information in the following corners. You have now an information architect mindset. Now it's time to avoid chaos in your Power BI reports. When it comes to reporting, we always hear the tip, less is more. But to be honest, cleaning up your report can be very hard work. Often we forget about good storytelling because we are too much focused on little details such as colors, grid lines, or other elements. In Power BI, you can declutter reports really fast by using or importing a Power BI theme. With this theme, you can get rid of too many colors or redundant elements like the grid lines or the y-axis. After you remove the chaos, you can finally focus on the important aspects of your report, such as storytelling. You learned how you remove insignificant details in your report very quickly. Let's move on to our last tip you need on your way to information design. I've showed you today one possible way how to structure a report in Power BI. But this is just one out of many. It is not important to technically implement the structure of Netflix one by one for good information design. This so-called preview feature is just one way to implement a detail layer. You could do it just like the report here on the right side. Here I used a button for more details. Very simple. With this simple button on the right side, you can navigate then to the deeper layouts of your report. If you need further help, there are little helpers out there. If you're interested in a topic, data storytelling and visualization, I can recommend you these 3 books. Storytelling with Data, Good Charts, and Guide to Information Graphics. They're all very practical, compact, and easy to read. Also, the podcasts Data with Today and Storytelling with Data are worth listening to. We have come to an end of our information design journey. Let's quickly summarize what we've learned so far. First, you have learned 5 important aspects of how humans behave when it comes to data visualization. For example, that we all live on educated values and that we only see one thing at a time. Second, you also learned which visuals keep your reports simple and easy to read, like the bar graphs and the line chart. Remember the eye tracking study and how inefficient some visuals can be. Keeping it simple is the key to your reports, and people feel less anxious when reading data. Third, Shift your mindset and think like an information architect. And remember the information seeking mantra: overview layer, detail layer, and zoom layer. Fourth, help yourself with little helpers, like the Power BI theme. After you remove the chaos from your reports, you will be able to focus on the important aspects, such as storytelling, structure, or technical development. And last but not least, don't stress out. Designing reports is allowed to be easy. And now it's on you to adapt the tricks and tips you learned today to your Power BI reports. Thank you very much for listening to this session. I hope you enjoyed it and I hope it was able to boost your creativity. We are now open for questions.